There you have it, folks. Zenshu is here. Zenshu is finally here. The anime from Mappa about anime production hell. What could possibly go wrong? When Mappa, the studio well known for having production delays and issues and people sleeping under their desks, what could go wrong with them making an anime about somebody with a creator's block that is holding up an entire anime production? Yes, jokes aside, this is not a Mappa anime. It's being animated by Mappa, but of course the creator, the producer, the directors, everything else behind it is not Mappa. So it's not their work, they're just animating it. But truth be told, the clickbait writes itself. The clickbait writes itself. People will enjoy making clickbait about this. I even joked about it initially when I heard about it before I found out, yes, who the creator was. Which, yes, does lead me to my stipulation here that I came into this show with pretty much zero expectations. Based on finding out who the creator of the actual story is, my expectation levels went to nothing. And yes, that is the creator behind Yurideko and Eden. Now, yes, Eden was fine, but Yurideko made me fall asleep. A very boring writer. They're a very safe writer overall. And so, yes, I had my expectations set from the very beginning. And yeah, based on the PV and based on the synopsis, I pretty much knew which direction this was going to go. And so far with the first episode, it's kind of going that direction. But the hope is that, I don't know, maybe this writer will finally have their breakout. Hopefully they'll have their Natsuko Hirose breakout hit. This will be the moment in which this creator does something really great. But yes, for those that have not watched Zenshu's first episode, it opens up with Natsuko Hirose. And they're, after graduating high school, they immediately went into animation. They went into and joined an animation studio. At that point, they kind of rose up in the ranks very, very quickly until the point that they became a director. They directed this one piece of work. It became extremely successful, and that pretty much put their name up on the charts. Everybody is excited for what Natsuko is going to do next. And yes, they got their new project. It's called Hatsukoi First Love, a film about love, which is great and everything. She's going to make lots of money. But unfortunately, yes, she's ran into a block. She's run into a creator's block. She doesn't know what to do with the actual storyboards, and it's holding up the entire project, and everybody's waiting for it. Doesn't seem to be bothering the producer or somebody. Some lady comes in. She comes in with a bunch of food, says, oh, it's okay. Whenever you get pushed back to the wall, that's usually when you do your best. So everybody, she's going to make lots of money. Can't wait for it. Even at some point, they mentioned the idea that she's holding up the key arts for the PV. She keeps saying to, redo it. Now, whatever. I'll redo it. And they're kind of pointing out, hey, you can't do this all yourself. And somebody else is like, stop acting like you're the only person here. Like everything revolves around you. And that point, she pretty much stares him down. But that's when we cut to Natsuko doing some ego surfing. You have a lot of people online that are excited to see what Natsuko does next. You have some criticism, people saying, I hate seeing that name. I don't want to ever see that name again. Some people don't like their work. But eventually she ends up running into some news about the fact that somebody has passed away, and that is a director of a series called A Tale of Perishing. Now, this is a series that was not well received. A lot of people did not like this thing, but it's something that she seems to like. It's a fantasy story about a guy named Luke Braveheart. He's fighting against this end of the world itself, and it's a very brutal story. It's a very mentally taxing story about the idea of loss and everything like that, as this guy is pushing against this end of the world. And this is something that Natsuko admits that there's a lot in this story that she doesn't really get, even till now, but she feels there's something great about that. Well, yes, as she's holding up the production, as she's reminiscing about A Tale of Perishing, you have this point in which she gets some food, she eats the food, and yes, it's old. It's old, and it ends up giving her food poisoning. It's the kind of food poisoning where the moment that you chew down on it, it instantly sends you into a coma, because that's what happens. Natsuko ends up collapsing and then finding herself waking up in the fantasy world of A Tale of Perishing, at which point she gets saved by Luke, ends up kind of going to the town nearby where they're celebrating Luke's, protecting the town. She realized very quickly, oh, I'm actually isekai'd. Even though it's only supposed to happen to NEETs and shut-ins, and I'm very successful. I'm not the person that typically gets caught up in these isekais. But yeah, she really quickly realizes, oh yeah, that's right. This town is supposed to get attacked by a horde of monsters in the story. And so she quickly tries to tell Luke. Luke doesn't believe it because QJ is over here, which usually senses it, is currently sleeping and charging. But yeah, she sits to the side. At some point, she's kind of watching as they're, interacting with each other. Realize, oh yeah, that's right. This is the point which Luke's, favorite companion, Unio, actually sacrificed themselves to save Luke, and that's what starts Luke's, state of depression. Well, yes, the attack happens, Luke goes out there, Unio goes to sacrifice themselves, Natsuko has, this pin board in her pocket that starts to call out to her to draw to stop this from happening. She ends up rushing out there, does a magical transformation, ends up saving Yunio, and then collapses. And that's pretty much where we end the first episode. And yes, like I said before, it's kind of following the same route that I kind of felt this was going to go. This is about somebody who feels like the weight of everything is upon them, that the ones that's successful, they have to handle everything, not knowing probably what love is, which I'm assuming that's what it is. Like, A Tale of Perishing seems to be a very dark story about a fantasy setting where somebody is losing all their friends around them. Their companions are dying, sacrificing themselves for the hero, and all that depression is weighing down upon him, that anger that's welling up inside of him, and that's something that she probably never understood. And yeah, based on the fact that she's always kind of secluded in her little desk space there, that she doesn't want anybody else's help, she probably doesn't understand what love is. She probably doesn't understand what companionship is. There's a lot of things that she's going to be learning in this other world that she didn't understand when she first watched A Tale of Perishing. And yeah, you seem to get a sense of that when she first gets there, and she very quickly butts heads with Yunio, this companion, and she's like fighting with him. And then at some point, Luke steps in and says, "I won't let you harm my companions." Like, grabs her and stops her and gets very angry about it. And then she's over here sitting off to the side and watching them interact with each other. And at some point realizing, oh, yeah, that's right. Losing this person meant a lot to him. And it kind of wrecked him. And I kind of want to stop that from happening again. And again, that's what kind of encourages her, or at least the pin board does, do something about it. She doesn't think that she can change the story because she's been isekai there and it's playing out like the story did. How can I change things? Okay, now I'm going to change it, and it's been changed. And again, I think that's what the story's going to go in. The idea of her not knowing what love is and companionship is, and then learning it through this story about Luke, who seems to have a strong feeling of love and companionship for those around him. And she'll learn it through being around them. And yeah, probably, assuming based on how the episode ends, probably have Luke fall in love with her, and she'll learn to love through, I don't know, possibly being doki doki with Luke himself, which would kind of make it really twisted, because then she'll wake up and not have Luke at her side if she's in a coma right now. The assumption here is that, yes, this isn't technically an isekai. She thinks that she's been transported to an isekai, but the assumption is that this is all fabricated in her mind, that she has been, reborn there because she doesn't know that she's not dead or whatever. Either way, visually, it's solid. I mean, this isn't Mappa's A-team. This isn't like probably their Jujutsu Kaisen team, their team that's going to go crazy and sleep under their desks. So far, overall, I think the attention to detail is fantastic. Like, her working at her desk, all the materials on the desk, everything looked absolutely gorgeous. But then, like, everything else between there, all the way up there, they capture that nice, like, 90s style anime whenever she's in this other world, which is really fantastic. But yeah, I think the point of obvious, like, Sakuga, the crazy awesome animation, was definitely towards the later part, which is when she finally steps forward and takes out the pin board and does the animation and, yes, saves Yunio. I'm assuming that little segment there is like their magical transformation for this show, which is kind of fitting, honestly. I felt it was a little cheesy, to be honest. It felt extremely cheesy that she runs out there and then she slaps it down on this fake desk. The desk appears, and then she's like drawing like crazy, and then suddenly out of nowhere, this massive, not even completed, not even cell drawn art comes out of nowhere. It's just literally the basic key art of the project itself kind of, manifests itself. It even has like the little like, notations on the side of the animation as it appears in the space of this world. It was actually pretty cool, and I love that little attention to detail there. But I assume this is like going to be something they're going to reuse every episode. Like, we'll have in episode 2, something else happens, and then all of a sudden it goes, "Draw, Natsuko," and then suddenly she pulls that out and then slaps it on the desk again, and then draws again, and then something else appears that saves everybody, which I find to be extremely fitting. For those who don't know, like, a lot of the Magical Girl anime, especially like earlier Magical Girl anime, I mean, it's still a thing now. I mean, even we had Magulamir last season did the same thing. Usually with the magical transformations for Magical Girl series, they put a lot of effort into. Even if it's series where the anime production overall is not great, like the entire episode looks like butt, the magical transformation will be amazing. Why? Because they put a lot of effort into it for episode 1, and they just reuse it, that same clip, every single episode. So it's kind of fitting because, again, the project that she became extremely successful for was a magical girl. It looked like a magical girl. And so I'm assuming that's probably a callback to this one project that she became very successful for. ends up kind of feeling in her mind that she has to do this magical transformation every single episode where she draws the thing that actually saves everybody. I thought it was very funny. The moment that kind of dawned on me, it gave me a nice chuckle. So I guess 1 for the writer for this series. You got me there. I thought that was very clever, although very cheesy. I have to admit, very cheesy that she just runs out there and slaps it down and saves the world by drawing. It's fitting to her. It's fitting to the character. It's fitting to, again, what made her successful, which is this magical girl. And yes, doing a magical transformation with insanely good animation, which again, hats off to them. Whoever, I'm sure it's probably like this one little group of a couple people did that entire cut there. They did an amazing job. It looked fantastic. Everybody that was involved, honestly, fantastic job. I think a lot of people will often kind of give credit to the original person that does the key art itself, like the actual, sketched section. But I think everybody did a phenomenal job on that. Now, I do want to mention the idea that I think there's probably going to be expectation here coming into it. Again, to the joke earlier about this is a mappa show about animating, ha ha ha. I don't think this is necessarily going to be a story about animating at all. I think when we first came into this and seen the art of, Natsuko sitting at the desk and working on something, and the synopsis talks about, this amazing director with creator's block and all that kind of stuff. And yes, the opening segments of the show, having her at her desk, sitting there drawing something and trying to figure out her storyboards, somebody coming in with the key arts and her kind of flipping through it. I don't think this show is really going to get into the elements of production. Now, there is something that can be done here where you'll probably have her every time she collapses, like right now, at the end of the first episode, she collapses. She could go back to our world, apply a little bit about what she's learned to kind of progress her story a little bit, and then run into another writer's block and go, crap, I don't know about this element of love. And then suddenly she eats another bento that has a rainbow colored clam in it. And then she passes out again. And people are going to stop giving her food at some point. But I wonder if it'll keep having that aspect of going back and forth and then discovering new things. And then, yes, we might get a little bit of insight into the whole process of production, which, yeah, unless they jump to different people, it wouldn't really work. Like, for those that have not watched Shirobako is a great example of the production process because we're coming from a perspective of somebody that's kind of working with each individual at some point in the story, somebody that's working with each individual. And so you see every little segment of how an animation is made. It's not really something you'll see from Natsuko's perspective unless they jump to different individuals. So I don't think we're going to get a full picture of how animation's made. We're just probably going to get the perspective of somebody having a writer's block doing the storyboards. I don't know, maybe later on the story, it'll focus and start actually getting that whole process, but I don't think so. I don't think Zenshu is going to be about anime production. It's going to be about somebody learning what love is, and eventually she finishes her writing and everybody's happy. So I think there's probably something that people should have an expectation for. I don't think that's the direction it's going. I think this is going to mostly be from the perspective of inside, a teleperishing and her discovering things. But yeah, so far, decent. I think the thing that's creating a little bit of promise for this series so far is that I kind of like Luke and his companions. It's very surface level so far, but at least there's a lot of kind of sense here that kind of push back against Natsuko. Like when she first appears, they all think that she's like some kind of monster because her hair is in front of her face, which they did explain what that whole thing is. I thought it was just going to be one of those stupid jokes about the Ring character. This person that's like always has their face covered, but there's a story reason behind it. Somebody believes it's encouragement that she chooses not to cut her hair until she finishes the storyboards, which yes, does indicate that she's been working on this for a long freaking time if her hair is that long, but she will cut it the moment that she finally writes her storyboards. So there's a reason for it. But yeah, they think that she's a monster. But there's a lot of pushback here, and I do kind of like that. It can hopefully create some good chemistry here going forward. But I honestly won't expect too much from the opening episode. This is so far has a decent setup. It's got a decent cast of characters so far. And again, my hope is because it's kind of playing into my expectations, hopefully with the next, 11 or so episodes, we'll kind of get into something really interesting with it. My hope is that what will come from this isn't the bog standards she is in a writer's block, and then she learns what love is through Doki Doki with Luke or something like that. But based on the first episode, there's a deeper meaning there. The idea that it isn't just simply she learns what love is because Luke was in love with somebody in this story and she never understood that love, and thus she goes, oh, this is what love is. Now I can write a story about for Hatsukoi First Love, this movie that I'm doing, and then everybody's like, okay, cool, big success. But more so the idea that she understands the deeper elements of love. And I think that's something that they kind of hint at with the first episode, in the idea that Yunio was kind of this unicorn character, which when she died, it looked like she was in a human form. But it was like this little unicorn thing, chibi unicorn that Luke just found to be like this really beloved companion. So there is an element here more so that there's all these individuals around Luke that they all trust each other and will die for each other. And that creates that element of deeper aspect than just, yes, first love. The idea of, oh, I looked at this girl and she was cute and doki doki. What is this feeling? It's more so a deeper element there. Trust, the devotion, all that kind of stuff that will hopefully inspire her with her actual story, which, yes, technically isn't that fitting for a first love story, but it is what it is. I did like the fact that when she finally realized that she's actually been isekai, or she is an isekai, she's obviously questioning, okay, is it reborn isekai? Is it transported? She obviously realized that she is who she is, so it can't be reborn. But she cracks a joke about the fact that, no, this doesn't happen to people like me. I'm successful. I have this big career ahead of me. This usually happens to NEETs and shut-ins. I'm not your usual candidate. This can't be happening. I did get a massive kick out of that. And yeah, the fact that when she's poisoned, the thing that she's thinking about is Kamen Rider. She's thinking about this live action that's going to be done for Tell of Perishing. The only thing that she could tell people in front of her is literally the name of the actor for this Kamen Rider. It's kind of funny. There's some good little jokes in here there. So it's got some decent comedy in there that's not trying too hard to be pushed in there. And yes, overall, visually, a solid series. So I don't know. I went from coming into the show with zero expectation, again, because of the writer themselves, and going with my usual saying of expect nothing and always be surprised. That's my slogan for those who don't know. Expect nothing, always be surprised. But came into it with zero expectations, and I think right now I've been bumped up to probably a 5 in expectations out of 10. So it's improving. Hopefully the remaining episodes will kind of keep bumping it up, but I'm not going to go up too high because it's an opening episode, first episode here. In a lot of cases, it always goes downhill from the first episode, right? We'll see where it goes from here, but that's my thoughts so far on Zenshu. We'll see what goes from here. If anything, we'll probably get some pretty solid little sakuga here and there, some really great animation. Again, that whole segment where the key frames kind of pops up out of nowhere and attacks was super good. I love that. Again, the little sketching of the notations on the side was like, oh, cool. That's awesome how they kind of added that in there along with it. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below, comment. Let me know what you think of the series if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe for the channel before you leave. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. I'll be doing first impressions of all the shows this season. If you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take care.